Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about a few things that are a little hard sometimes, but pretty easy once you figure them out. So let's get started. These things are called restrictive and non-restrictive clauses, or essential or non-essential information, or when to use which and that. These things are all combined into one big lesson. These things are all found in sentences that either have information that is essential or non-essential to the phrase. Well, what even is a non-restrictive clause? It's when information in a clause or phrase isn't necessary to the outcome or meaning. You can take this information out of the phrase and put it back in, and it will still make sense. This information is surrounded by commas. Think of the phrase, Irina, who is Russian, applied for the job. You don't need to know that Irina is Russian. What is essential to know is that she is applying for the job. The sentence also makes sense without this information, so you don't need it. See how even if you took this information out, the outcome of what happened would still be the same, and the phrase would still make perfect sense. It is therefore non-restrictive. How you remember this is pretty simple. Non-essential and non-restrictive both have the word non in them, so you can make that connection, and then, by the process of elimination, have essential and restrictive left. Restrictive clauses are just the opposite. All the information in the phrase is completely essential, and if you were to take that information out, the outcome would be completely different. And one more big thing to remember, in non-restrictive clauses, the commas surround the non-essential information. And in restrictive clauses, there would be no commas, because all the information is completely essential. Now it's your turn. Add the commas where you think they should go. Remember, non-restrictive is non-essential information. Rice, which is grown in many countries, is a staple food throughout much of the world. The commas go after rice and after countries, because it is not necessary to know that rice is grown in many countries. That does not affect the second part of the phrase, therefore making it a non-restrictive phrase. Now the next one. The man I spoke to was wearing a white hat. Add the commas where you think they should go, if there are any. There are no commas. If there were commas, there would be a completely different meaning. If you had added commas, you might as well mean, the man was wearing a white hat. In conclusion, the spoke to is not interchangeable and therefore restrictive. Now we're moving on to the difference between which and that. Which is generally associated with non-restrictive and that with restrictive. But how do you remember which is which and which is that? Well, non-restrictive has two ends in it, and if you think about it, if you flip those two ends upside down, it creates a W for which. Here's a little recap. We know that restrictive and non-restrictive clauses are phrases where the information is either essential or non-essential, and we know that because if the information is taken out and it completely changes the meaning of the phrase, it is restrictive. Finally, we know the difference between which and that because of our little upside down end theory. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for listening.